Hi everybody, welcome to This Week in Data, your guide to modern data culture, brought to you by Pragmatic Works. I'm Adam Jorgensen.
And I'm Devin Knight, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at how you can master a technical interview. So specifically a technical interview, what are some of the things you need to be thinking about? What are some of the things you need to be aware of that you wouldn't have in a regular interview?
Oh, okay. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, but first today we're going to start, of course, like we always do, with some news. So the first headline I have here for you, which is definitely clickbait. You'll be able to tell they're clickbait.
Okay.
This comes from InfoWorld, and the article is called "Data is Useless."
Yeah, that's clickbait.
Yeah.
That's definitely clickbait. But it worked because you apparently clicked on it.
It totally worked. I clicked on it. I saw it, and I thought, there's something up with this article. I want to find out what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So it starts like this. It actually, have you ever seen the movie Imitation Game?
I have.
What'd you think?
I liked it.
Yeah, it's
that was
pretty
a good
interesting.
movie. Yeah.
So it's based a little bit, the article a little bit is based off that story, the real life story of
Right.
Alan Turing.
Right.
And how he broke the Nazi Enigma code for how they were sending messages back and forth. And the point of the story a little bit was that they were able to break it, but it didn't make any huge, significant wartime changes at that time.
Right.
But the point of that, the reason that was even brought up in this article was that's not so different than how we work in a business environment, right?
Yeah, that's true.
If you get the data, if you get the information, if you don't use it properly, or if you're not consuming it in the right way, then it's useless. It's true. The clickbait, the title is actually true. If you're not using things properly, if you're not using data properly, then
There's a second half to the sentence is what you're saying. So data is useless if you're not really applying it, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have the people to really make use of it.
Exactly. So data itself, yes, is useless unless you do something with it.
Right.
Unless you start to get more inventive with how you use it.
Gotcha.
The second article I have for you today is from TechCrunch. I'm sure this was probably listed in multiple places as well. But this one is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration released all their raw 2015 data, all their crash data. That tells us, and really what they're trying to do is to get companies like us or like anybody really for free is what they want.
Well, they called us and Google.
They called us,
right?
yeah.
They had two top contenders.
Right.
Google, and they said we got to also call Pragmatic Works.
Exactly. So they released all of this data that they're hoping to get more analytics on traffic safety.
Okay.
And so some of the stuff they're trying to answer, some of the questions they're trying to answer are things like how might we improve, how might economic conditions in certain areas, so as economics change in different areas of the country, how does that improve traffic safety?
Yeah.
If there's any correlation there at all. They're trying to determine that. Also things like what models can be developed to identify communities that might be at higher risk. So which ones are at higher risk for traffic safety problems. And then also just, what's general attitudes towards speeding and safety in general and how that affects crashes.
That's true. So they're kind of crowdsourcing it. They can't obviously do it all.
Right.
So they want to try to call on companies that have these top tier, super smart people who did really well in their technical interviews.
Yeah.
To try to help them figure it out.
Yep, exactly.
That's very cool.
Exactly.
I think it's a smart idea.
Yeah, you would wonder, why don't government agencies do this more often? I'm sure some of the data can be very sensitive, of course.
Right.
But there's a way that they can get feedback from people that genuinely care.
Right.
That if they asked, they would probably do something for free.
I mean, we're going to help Google figure it out.
Exactly.
So we're here for you.
Then the last article I have for you, this one comes from recode.net. But I'm sure this one was also published multiple places. This one is about, first of all, let me ask you this, before I tell you the headline here.
Okay.
What if you could have Jarvis from Iron Man run your house?
Done.
Yeah.
Why is it even a question?
Why is
Who
this
says
news?
no to that?
That'd be pretty awesome, right?
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So Mark Zuckerberg.
As long as he doesn't run an Oracle.
Okay, yeah, that's
in the
true.
movie,
He does have
that's
Oracle.
he's like spinning up the Oracle grid. And I'm like, see, it even takes Jarvis work to spin up the Oracle grid. I don't know if that's such a good advertisement. But anyway.
So Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, he does a lot of his own kind of side projects, these own projects that he has on his own. And one of them, he said he has two projects this year.
Two projects.
One was more about kind of a personal thing where he's trying to run more often, stay healthier.
Okay, all right,
and
that's
then
good.
The other one is more of a development thing. He's developing an AI or an artificial intelligence component for his home. Something that can eventually go beyond just his home, obviously, and be able to be sold to the consumer.
Right.
But he just kind of described it as like having Jarvis from Iron Man run his home and him being able to talk to it and it act based on things that he said.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool.
He said right now, it has facial recognition, so when he comes up to his gate, it automatically opens. He can automatically toast for himself, apparently.
What?
Which is great. I don't know if he just has toast sitting in the toaster the whole time. That might toast itself without you having to do anything.
Or does he have to go put it in? Because if all we're doing is getting rid of pushing the button down, I feel like Mark might be shooting a little low there.
But he said also he has the ability to change temperature of his home, things like that. I think some of those things we can do now.
I think I can do 90% of that at my house.
Yeah, through your voice.
Yes.
Yeah, you have Amazon's.
I have the Alexa, and it can control my Nest thermostat.
Yep, absolutely. I have the same thing. So that's funny. Yeah, but I think he's running through.
We are just like Mark Zuckerberg.
We are basically.
I just realized this.
We are basically Mark Zuckerberg.
We are
without the money.
We are. That's true.
But he said one of the funny components of it, he said, was that it only recognizes right now his voice, so his wife can't even change the temperature and things like that. So kind of funny.
That's the code I need to steal from him.
Yes.
I need total control.
I hate it when my wife changes the temperature.
I have no control in my house.
Yeah.
I need control.
All right, so that's what we have for news this week. Now on to our main story for this episode.
Yeah, which is mastering a technical interview. So we talked just for a second about it earlier, but why did we decide to focus on technical interviews this week? Because, I mean, there's different types of interviews. I mean, why the technical interview?
Yeah, I think the big piece of this is understanding that they're different. A regular interview from a technical interview is certainly different. And part of the reason why it's different is because an employer needs to know that the day that you start, you have the skills they need to complete the job, right?
Or what you're going to need to ramp up.
Right.
Maybe you don't have everything day one, but they need to know what gaps they're going to have to fill or
exactly,
et cetera, right?
Exactly. And so there's a lot of things that are different about them. Things like oftentimes you might have things like panel interviews. That does happen in other interviews as well, but it's more frequent in technical interviews where you'll get a group of existing technical staff that ask kind of like Knights of the Round Table, burn you on all kinds of questions.
We used to call that Stump the Chump.
Stump the Chump, that's another way. I like that, yeah. Another thing that's pretty frequent with them is you might expect something like a whiteboard session where you need to whiteboard out how to solve problems.
Show them how you would design it, walk them through your thought process.
Yep. So because of the differences there, we want to make sure that you are prepared for something like that.
Yeah.
And what are some of the do's and don'ts, and what are some of the things that you just need to be aware of?
So we talk about do's and don'ts. There's a lot of typical things, do's and don'ts for interviews.
Yeah.
What are some of those?
Yeah, all the same rules apply that you would have for a typical interview when it comes to do's and don'ts, and then we'll add a few to it. But things like you should always show up early.
Do we really need to keep telling people that?
You do.
It still happens.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
Don't risk showing up late.
No.
Don't even risk it. If you have to, if you show up 30 minutes early even, go to a coffee shop for a little bit.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says that guy or that lady showed up way early.
Yeah, that's not going to be a reason you don't get hired.
Right, exactly.
This is a big one that I've seen. I've actually heard about after the fact, is respecting everyone. So from security when you walk in the door, to reception, to everyone that you interact with, not just the people that you're going to be interviewing with, show full respect, and throughout the entire visit do that, because if you don't show respect to even the security guard as you walk in the door or the reception, that'll get remembered.
It will. And
trust me, that person will tell the person that you just interviewed with that they were very disrespectful, because that shows how you are on a day-to-day basis.
And in some larger companies, Devin, they actually, that's part of the whole process.
Yeah.
They'll actually know who you talk to at the front desk, and they know what security guard you interact with, and they'll come ask them proactively. And they'll show you Devin's picture and say, was this person nice? Were they respectful? What did you feel about them? And we interview a lot of people. Sometimes we don't get to interview them in person. And, that's a big thing for us, not just respecting the people on the phone asking you the hard questions, but the HR person or the recruiter that you reached out to. Make sure that, you're taking care of things the right way.
Yeah, and another one, here's the last do I have as far as kind of a standard interview do. Make eye contact.
Oh,
Come on, you can't say, it really... Just so you know, people that are listening, we are making...
I'm staring deeply into your eyes.
10 seconds.
I'm proving that I can make eye contact.
Of uninterrupted eye contact. This is my reward that I get at the end of each day.
It is.
Is uninterrupted eye contact with Adam.
That's a special one for the video viewers. If you haven't watched our videos and you're listening on audio, go to YouTube and check them out.
Yeah. And then to get to some of the technical do's, things like bring examples of your work.
Yeah.
So if you're a report writer, for example, it might be a little easier for you.
Right.
But bring an example of a dashboard you've created at some point. Even if you are not a report writer, you can still do things like a high-level data model of something you've done before, or an example of one you've done before. Don't bring any actual data from a previous employer, things like that.
Don't bring it back up on a thumb drive.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem. But you should be able to talk through and be prepared to say, hey, I solved these kinds of problems in my previous role, and here's how I did it.
Right.
And here's physically how I put some of these things together that people in that interview can relate to. I think that's a great tip.
Yep, absolutely. And the last one, again, this one can be carried over to any type of interview, but do some research on not only the company, but the specific job you're going to be going into.
Yeah, especially if you're going for a promotion type job or a job in a different industry, showing that you did the research, and even throwing some things out there, like saying, I did some research before I got here, and these are the things that I learned, and here's how I think they would apply to what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not showing off. Just be honest about what you've done, and I think people appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so how about some don'ts here? So first don't I have is, this is the one that really bothers me. Don't talk negatively about your previous employer.
Man, does that aggravate me when people do that in an interview.
Yes, or just negatively in general. Don't talk negative about your spouse.
What?
Don't say, oh man.
I don't do that anyway, Devin.
You never do that.
I don't care what the outtakes on the camera say.
But yeah, how does that turn you off as someone, a hiring manager?
Well, you just have to start thinking, how is this person going to, when we bring somebody in, let's say they're going to be part of our consulting team, we're going to put them out in front of clients. They may work internally with other departments, and I want them to represent the best of us. Mm-hmm. And when they let stress or frustration overcome the way they're going to communicate and the way they're going to work with somebody. Yeah. That's a real challenge, and and a lot of us have done that at one time or another. But if you can't hold it together long enough to not do it in the interview, you're probably not going to be very successful at it day in and day out.
Absolutely, yeah. Another one here I have for you is try and be succinct with your answers. Don't give super short answers, but also don't give such long-winded ones that you go on and you end up talking way more than you should. There's something to be said for getting the interviewer to talk more and to actually have it be more of a conversation than a one-way thing. So don't ramble, basically, right?
Kind of like you're doing right now?
Yeah.
Got it. Do we have one more don't?
One more don't, which sadly I've actually seen a lot. Don't underdress. You're not going to underdress for a job interview. That doesn't exist.
No. You mean you're not going to overdress? I'm just assuming
you're not going to overdress.
You're not going to overdress. Yes. You can definitely underdress.
Yes. Actually have seen, albeit it was for an internship, somebody walked in with board shorts on. They did not get the internship. I know it's just an internship, but
still,
if you're wearing board shorts to an interview, what are you going to show up every day with, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big pet peeve also. So what else do we want to talk about here?
Well, we have things like, one of the things that I had a technical interview a number of years ago, too many years ago, and, the whole interview was basically designed to get me to, kind of break, right? So they knew they were going to ask me a lot of questions that I didn't know. And what they wanted to see really was how I performed. Yeah. How did I perform when I don't know something? Because there's so many things we don't know.
Right.
And so what are some of the things, I think I handled it pretty well. I felt exhausted and tired after the interview, but the guy walked me out and said, you did a great job. And I kept thinking, I don't know. But how do we feel more confident in a scenario where we don't know the answer?
Yeah, I think honesty has got to be key, right? So don't pretend like you know something you don't.
Right.
Because if they're asking the question, they know enough about it to ask the question, and they probably know if you're lying.
Plus, they probably have their smartphone and they can check you.
Yeah,
somebody can fact check you in real time.
Right. So, be honest. If you don't know something, say it. Now, there's probably more creative ways of saying I don't know than just flat out saying I don't know.
That's true.
I always like, and maybe you have some ideas on this, but I always like the method of it saying, I'd love to put that on my list of topics that I'm researching right now. I'm doing a lot of studying right now. I'd love to add that to the list. And that helps you a couple ways. First of all, it shows you are a continuing learner. You're still learning things. You know that. You have a list, first of all. So you have a list of things.
You have a plan.
You have a plan.
Right. That's important.
There's a creative way you can say, I don't have any for you today on that, but I'll put that on my list of things to research. And tell you what, if you bring me back another time, I'll have that answer for you.
I think that's a great idea, Devin. I really like the idea of putting it on the plan. The other thing that I like to do is I'll ask a clarifying question. So if you ask me a question like, talk to me about how you set up a high availability environment for SQL Server, I may say, oh, in my head, there's a lot of ways to do that. I could use clustering or always on or this or that. I know at least enough to be able to ask a clarifying question and say, well, what version of SQL Server are we talking about? And what are your goals with the HA environment? So ask some of those questions to at least show and say, I don't know offhand how to sit down and write you a checklist of 1 to 100 on how to do this, but I feel like I have a good understanding of how to get closer to what we need to do, and I believe I can figure it out.
Yeah, I like that.
And so start the conversation again, like you said, pull them into the conversation, have it be more of a dialogue instead of a Q&A. I can tell you folks who get me into a very good dialogue in an interview typically perform really well in an interview with me, and if it's primarily Q&A, that person's a lot more disengaged and doesn't usually go as well.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So if we have all of that going on, we're making smart answers when we don't know the answer. We showed up on time. We have on acceptable shorts or pants for the interview.
Pants, yes.
Very dressy sandals, whatever's appropriate.
Birkenstocks are the dressiest of sandals here.
Our CEO formally endorses them.
Yep.
I think he's a brand ambassador, which is pretty exciting. But how do you set yourself apart, right? Because they're going to bring in a lot of smart people, probably. Yeah. Some of those people might be smarter than you. Some of them might have more experience. Some of them might not. But how do you set yourself apart to make sure they remember Devin's our guy?
Yeah, I think it goes back to a lot of things we've talked about already. Things like bringing examples of your work. A lot of people aren't going to do that. They're not going to think to do that. And making it an engaging interview, like you said, having questions asked back. It shouldn't be a one-way, like you said, one-way conversation where it's just kind of drilling you with questions. It should be that you have pre-prepared questions of things that you want to know more about the job or more about what you're going to be doing.
Right.
Yeah, great if you can come up with some of those questions offhand while you're talking there, but if you have those prepared, even better. You're ready for some questions, and you'll probably think of more as you get going. So those are big ways to set yourselves apart. We'd actually talked previously in a previous episode about certifications. So that's another way that you can set yourself apart. Not to rehash that topic, but more depends on your personal goals, what you're trying to do.
Right.
If one of your personal goals is to get a job, that's certainly one of the things that can help.
And we did talk about in that episode, if you have a weakness in a particular area, or if you're new to a particular area, having a certification can help maybe overcome some fear of the employer, of your experience and things like that, right? So, Devin, we interview a lot of people, but we're pretty selective about, who we pick. We look for things like a good culture fit. We try to have them talk to multiple people. I'm always a little disappointed when people don't have those questions that you mentioned, right? And so, I think from my perspective, one of the best ways we can help our audience and the way we help a lot of our customers is by helping them interview.
Yeah.
We come together with them to partner and say, let us help you screen your team or your new hires or et cetera. Let us help you plan out either what kind of roles you need, everything from sort of structuring the team to actually doing that interview screening, and then maybe even staffing the resource, or maybe just helping you interview for a full-time person in your own organization. So if you'd like to find out more information about that, fill out the form on the blog, go to our blog at blog.pragmaticworks.com and let us know how we can help you out.
You know what I'd also like to hear? I think that's great. I'd also like to hear people's thoughts on bad interview experiences they've had.
Such good stories.
Oh man, we have some good ones we could share here. But if you can, put those in the comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. What are some of the really strange and off-the-wall interview experiences you've had? I think there's probably some fun ones there.
Okay, so before we end, because I know we're basically wrapping, but before we end, since you brought that up, I think we owe them one each. 30 seconds. What's your best or worst epic interview fail story?
Okay, the best one. I have a couple. Well, here's probably one that I'm seeing happen more and more often.
Okay.
Is where you start off with a phone interview, because maybe they don't live in the city that you're at there easily to meet up. And so you'll do the phone interview. It goes really great. But then the first day, someone else shows up. And you've never actually seen them.
Yes.
So you don't know. And that's why it's becoming more popular to do things like video interviews.
Right.
At the very least, if you don't fly them in, see the person ahead of time that you're talking to while they're talking.
Right.
And make sure it's not like a puppet like somebody had.
That is correct. That is correct.
Because I had in an experience where multiple times, at least 2 times, that I could tell the very first day that the person showed up, that was not the person I talked to on the phone.
Yes.
Not so much that their voice was that different, but I could ask them the same questions that I asked them in the interview. They had no idea what I was talking about.
No idea.
Yeah.
Oh, that's insane.
Yeah.
So I have a similar story. Again, the reason we do video conference for a lot of our interviews, but we actually had a person who thought they were going to be able to type, if you're on the radio, I'm just typing with my fingers, type, to live Google the answers. And they forgot about 5 minutes into the interview that they had turned on the video cameras. And so because I guess they had another screen up and it was covering the screen that was showing our face.
Yeah.
And so we would say, well, talk to me a little bit about, how you would optimize an SSIS package. So the guy was interviewing for an advanced developer position. We want to know, can he take things to the next level? And so this person just, all of a sudden we hear click, 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 click. And I remember looking at one of our other interviewers, because we were in the same room, and saying, is he typing? Am I losing my mind, or is he typing? And sure enough, that's what was going on. They were live Googling the answers.
As he starts reading off Brian Knight's blog.
Pretty much.
Of how to optimize this.
So I will tell you, we probably could have handled this a little better, but we decided to let the interview keep going. And we decided to play a little game on the back end where we would Google it at the same time and try to see if we could find the same site that they were reading off of. And before the end of the interview, we busted them. We found them on the same site.
Wow.
And it's not a good idea to try to live look up answers. We talked about what to do if you don't know the answer.
Right.
We had some great suggestions for you today. So tell us about your epic interview stories, whether you're interviewing somebody or whether you had one that just went terribly awry. And check us out on blog.pragmaticworks.com. Let us know what else we can do for you. And what other topics you'd love to see on This Week in Data. We'd love to keep creating content that you guys are getting a lot of value out of. So thanks a lot for coming.
Thanks a lot.